Hello Year 11 and welcome to another guest lecture. This one is on windows, which might seem a bit strange, but this was the topic of my thesis at university, the importance of windows and window scenes within literature. So, what can you see through a window? I'm going to pause to let you think about that question for a minute. What can you see through a window? Now maybe visualise something there. Certainly, in my situation right now, sat in the dining room, beautiful sunny day, sun streaming through the skylight, and I'm looking out onto my garden through the window. And for me, what I can see through the window is actually the outside world. It's nature, it's trees, it's landscape, it's freedom. Maybe quite a lot of you are feeling that way at the moment. We're looking through windows at the outside where we can't be. This kind of idea. But maybe on your daily walk, you are actually looking at things through a window. Anyone ever been that nosy person that has a peek as you walk past somebody's house to try and have a look and see what kind of furniture they have, what are they watching on the TV, what's that family doing? There's that as well, isn't there? So considering that a window can be about perspective from the inside looking out, but it can also be about from the outside looking in. So what is a window and what is the function of the window? And then what's that got to do with reading? Well, window comes from the Middle English window, the etymology rooted in the Old Norse vindauga, meaning the eye of the wind. Vindra, wind, and auga, eye. The window is therefore an opening in a wall, referring to an absence which can be filled. So by material, by glass, wood, paper, stone, by that which is seen through it, or by something rather immaterial like light or air. And the window is therefore almost defined as an absence. So a window means actually that space where something else can be. It's the frame for its variable content. And it's the marker of difference between what is inside and what is outside. So the eye of the wind, we think about it in that sense, the idea of the gap through which something can get to us. Either our opportunity to see out or our opportunity to see in, depending on our perspective on something. Now, eyes are important actually because we think about eyes in the sense of the window to the soul. So the eye, the window to the soul, the mouth, the door. The intellect, the will is seen in the eye, the emotions, sensibilities and affections in the mouth. The animals look for man's intention right into his eyes. Even a rat, when you hunt him and bring him to bay, looks you in the eye. Think about this concept that actually, if the eye is the window to the soul, well actually the window is the idea of our way of accessing and seeing something and understanding something. That's what windows do for us. This is a quote by Claudia Johnson, known as Lady Bird Johnson. Art is the window to man's soul. Without it, he would never be able to see beyond his immediate world, nor could the world see the man within. For me, this quotation is all about the idea actually that when it says art, that means all kinds of arts. That could be art in the sense of fine art and paintings and portraits and those kinds of things, but it could also be art in terms of dance, creativity. It could also be art in terms of literature, okay, which is how I see art. That's my preferred method of art. Maybe for you it's music or dance or something else, but art is the window to man's soul. It is how we experience other things. It is how we understand other things. And right now, particularly for me, art is really important in terms of escapism. I can sit, yes, in my house and know that I can't really go anywhere else right now. But in reading, I can travel the world. I can travel through time. And also, I can understand other people's experience too, by reading things, or by watching films, or by looking at pictures. All those things help me to do that. So, Portrait of a Lady by Henry James. The preface to this story talks about this idea of art and our ability to see other things through it. The house of fiction has, in short, not one window, but a million, a number of possible windows, not to be reckoned, rather, every one of which has been pierced or is still pierceable in its vast front by the need of the individual vision and by the pressure of the individual will. These apertures of dissimilar shape and size hang so all together over the human scene that we might have expected of them a greater sameness of report than we find. They are but windows at the best, mere holes in a dead wall, disconnected, perched aloft. They are not hinged doors opening straight upon life. But they have this mark of their own, that at each of them stands a figure with a pair of eyes, or at least with a field glass, which forms again and again for observation a unique instrument, ensuring to the person making use of it an impression distinct from every other. Now for me, this house, I like to imagine the outside of the house, and then all of these windows and all of these different positions, and inside is life, okay, or art either. And if I stand at that window, maybe when I look down at a particular thing, a particular text that I might be reading, maybe I'm peeking through the skylight, looking at it from that perspective. Maybe you are stood at that tiny little window to the side of the door. Or maybe actually you've got the huge bay window and you can see all the way in. Maybe your window is slightly open. Maybe my window has a curtain across it. All of these ideas that actually this window becomes this frame through which we see the world, and also through which we see a story. We can read the same story, but I can feel differently about it to you. Interesting. We can read the same poem, but I can have a different interpretation of it to you because of our window, because of our way of looking at it. So a window becomes the frame for a story, the view through which a story can be created as realism becomes fictionalised. So we can look at something that is actually real life, but if we look at it through a frame, through a window, we then have our story, our perspective of the story. So if I were to look at the same real life image or situation as you were to, I will feel something and think something differently than you will. Because we're coming at it from different perspectives, we're coming at it from different frames because of the other knowledge and other experiences we have in our lives. So windows offer just a part of a story. They can never give us everything, and to get the full story you almost need everybody's different views of something to be pieced together. So here's an interesting picture. What is the frame of this story? What is the story taking place here? We have a person looking through a window, yes, but they are looking through a window at somebody filming somebody doing something. And if we actually look outside the window, can you see the person outside the window looking at the person who's looking through the window? There's another level to that story. There might also be another person who's going to be looking at the story that's being filmed later, and that's another frame and another perspective. So the story itself is this person in the restaurant, maybe sat writing, it looks like, doesn't it, next to some food? I mean, my first question is, you've got some chips there, why aren't you eating them? But you've got this story being filmed by somebody, being watched being filmed on the outside, and then somebody watching that person. So we've got somebody watching a person, watching a filmmaker, watching a person. It starts to get a bit confusing after a while, that, doesn't it? Now that idea is actually called mise en abîme. It's formulated and coined by André Gide in 1893, and it basically means this idea of a representation within a representation which mirrors the representation which contains it. So try and think about these images kind of help you to see that is a picture within a picture within a picture within a picture. And this idea that it's an abîme, it's an abyss, we fall into it because actually where's the end? Where's the start? What's the story? What's the picture? Where's the frame? What's the window? Ah! It's okay if your brain is hurting. That means you're thinking. That's good. Okay, if your brain is hurting right now, well done. Okay, this is one of my absolute favourites. So if you did the Victorian Women Writers seminar, or maybe you haven't done that yet, maybe you're going to do it in the future, you will have heard about Jane Eyre, read a little bit about it. And we've got here this section from the beginning of chapter 1 in Jane Eyre, where Jane Eyre is actually sat at the window. Have a read of that extract and have a think about how Jane is positioned in the window and what effect the window actually has for her. What is she doing in the window, and is it significant? I'm going to pause so that you can read that and then come back to me once you have. Okay, so I love this bit. Jane is an orphan. She's hiding away from everybody. She tucks herself up into this window seat. She covers the curtains on the one side. She is looking out at the window, yes, but mainly she's reading in this window seat, and in that window seat she gets this window to this other world, or whatever it is that she's reading about. Her brain is able to take herself, therefore, to those places, and reading within a window is really interesting because it becomes this place of escape. It becomes symbolic of escape, but also it provides her with that escape because it's where she can read. This is why I have an absolute dream of finally getting a window seat in my house one day, and I really want it to be in a room that's also a library. My husband thinks that these ideas are unrealistic, but I'm hoping that one day it will happen. Okay, here's another one for you. This one's from Middlemarch, which again I mentioned in the Victorian Women Writers Seminar. So, a view on the world, or of one's place within it. Far off in the bending sky was the pearly light, and she felt the largeness of the world, and the manifold waking of men to labour and endurance. She was a part of that involuntary, palpitating life, and she could neither look out on it from her luxurious shelter as a mere spectator, nor hide her eyes in selfish complaining. She yearned toward the perfect right, that it might make a throne within her and rule her errant will. What should I do? How should I act now, this very day, if I could clutch my own pain and compel it to silence and think of those three? It had taken her long to come to that question. There was light piercing into the room. She opened her curtains and looked out towards the bit of road that lay in view, with fields beyond, outside the entrance gates. So here you've got this idea of somebody using a space within a window to look out and to think about who they are. And who they are in terms of everybody else that she can see in the distance, all of those people working. She's a part of that life, and yet she's not part of it because she's in the window, stuck inside. Okay, this is another extract from Middlemarch that I'd like you to have a read of, and with that one I want you to think about why the window is significant in this scene, this kind of moment of romance. Okay, and another here. This one's from Mrs. Dalloway, looking through a window at someone else in a window. Oh, but how surprising. In the room opposite, the old lady stared straight at her. She was going to bed. And the sky. It will be a solemn sky, she had thought. It will be a dusky sky, turning away its cheek in beauty. But there it was, ashen pale, raced over quickly by tapering vast clouds. It was new to her. The wind must have risen. She was going to bed in the room opposite. It was fascinating to watch her moving about, that old lady crossing the room, coming to the window. It was fascinating, with people still laughing and shouting in the drawing room, to watch that old woman quite quietly, going to bed alone. So notice how in this piece the structure of the paragraph splits for a sentence or two referring to the old lady, and then it returns to the sky, and it kind of flickers back and forth. And that helps us to create this idea of the narrator, Clarissa, or the person, looking at the lady, then looking away, and then looking back at her again, because it helps kind of switch our attention as the reader. It's a realist technique. This is by Virginia Woolf, if you are interested in reading it. Okay, for the final section, there are two videos here that come from Atonement, which is again another brilliant book. And the window is really important in this scene. You watch the video first of all from the perspective of the people involved in this incident, where something is broken off a vase outside, and then you watch it from the child's perspective from the window, what she sees and what she thinks is happening. Think about the effect of the window on that scene once you read it. Okay, I've talked about a lot of different examples of windows there, and I've given you quite a few texts that you might find interesting to read. Jane Eyre, Middlemarch, Mrs. Dalloway and Atonement. But you could also think about a window that you know of from a text that you have read. Maybe that one? Okay, I hope you enjoyed thinking about that, and your brains might hurt from it a bit, but that's okay. Give me an email if you've got any questions. Bye.